Black Talk Radio Network is made possible in part with help from the Black Talk Media Project, a North Carolina-based nonprofit engaged in the production and distribution of independent digital black media. Find out more by going to blacktalkradionetwork.com or blacktalkmediaproject.org and look for the menu tab, Crowdfunding Black Media. Black Talk Media Project, helping to provide you with new black media for the new millennium.
And opinions expressed by callers, guests, and hosts do not necessarily reflect those of the Black Talk Radio Network and Black Talk Media Project. Black Talk Radio is new black media for the new millennium. Good afternoon. You are tuned in to Black Talk Radio News. My name, of course, is Scotty Reed. I'm broadcasting from behind the enemy lines of USA Inc. I hope that my voice finds you in relative safety behind these enemy lines. Let's see, what is today? Today's Tuesday, right? Okay, yeah, today is Tuesday. The date is May 31st, 2016. Broadcasting from a hot day in North Carolina. It is really, really kind of hot down here. But, hey, I prefer hot weather to cold weather any day. I do not miss that snow that we was getting when we lived in Detroit. I don't miss it at all. So I'm not complaining. I'm just noting that it's particularly hot down here today. All right. Today got a couple of things that I would like to share with you. First of all, we do have a guest who will be joining us, LeRon Barton, who is a writer. I would call him an activist. I don't know if he considers himself an activist, but if you are engaged in mentoring youth or anything like that, you are activists, you know. But he's also a writer, and Mr. Barton wrote an article that I found particularly important. He wrote an article that's titled When Black People and Police Collide, and I describe it as a how-to manual on surviving slave catchers here behind enemy lines in the USA. So it is a must read, and he will be joining us today to tell us why he felt, the need to publish this article, which was published, and we linked to it for you, but it's published on goodmenproject.com. So we'll be talking to Mr. Barton here in about 7 minutes or so. Can't wait to speak with him. But in the meantime, this is sort of a related story. This is a story that seems to be going viral in the last 24 hours. You had the rapper and entrepreneur Snoop Doggy Dog, the Dog Pound, said that people should boycott the new television series that has come out, the remake of Roots. And I actually caught some of that yesterday. I watched about a scene of it, and there was this black man under this cart trying to look like a knife or something. And, it showed two black men fighting each other, beating up on each other after one of them dropped the barrel they was trying to load into the wagon. So that black man went off on the other black man, and they was fighting each other. And then This one guy, he's playing Kunta Kinte, is his character, and he winds up seeing some kind of piece of metal on the ground under the wagon, and he gets down on the ground, like, allowing this white man to just kick him and beat him and stuff like that so he can get this knife. I seen enough. That's all I needed to see. I saw Roots back in the 70s when I was a child, when it aired on television. I think this was on cable. I think this was on cable that I saw it yesterday. And so Snoop Dogg said he tired of seeing movies like this. He says that, all they want to show is black people getting abused and stuff like that. 12 years a slave and all of that. And I can feel him. I feel where he's coming from. But a lot of people don't feel where he's coming from, and they're clowning him as a respect, saying that he's dumb and all this and that. And my thing is Snoop Dogg doesn't seem to be a rocket scientist or anything like that. He's not the next George Washington Carver or what have you. No, he's not the next Booker T. Washington. No, he's not. But I think that we should not be engaging in calling the man dumb simply because we don't agree with his opinion. And I'm going to play his clip. If you have any comments, any thoughts on this, I've been putting the question out on social media. It seems to be split down the middle. Some people get where Snoop is coming from. Other people don't. They say he's stupid, and of course, there's the comparisons to what would the Jews do, not what would Jesus do. Oh man, we need to come out with a ban for that, right? Because it seems like every time black people talk about certain issues, we got to fall back on what would Jews do, not what would Jesus do. What would Jews do? So WWJD seems to be what a lot of people fall back on whenever we start talking about our historic suffering. That includes slavery and what have you. So, it's okay for us to disagree. We're not identical twins, and I've been told even identical twins don't agree on everything. But I think that, this subject is worth delving into. He makes, some very brief comments and what have you. I may not agree with the way that he's expressing himself, but that's okay. I ain't got to agree with how he's expressing himself. Some people are even saying he should just keep his mouth shut and keep his opinions to himself. But, these same people are expressing their opinions, and they're not keeping their opinions to themselves. So, I don't know why people is tripping on Snoop Dogg over these comments, which I'm feeling them. If you heard New Abolitionist Radio maybe last week or the week before, and the guys was telling me about this new television series, and Snoop Dogg even mentions it. I think it's called Underground and what have you. And I told Max, I was like, Max, I don't watch them kind of movies, man. I don't. I cannot sit through watching black people be brutalized, be whipped, be beat, be raped, just all manner of abuse. I just can't sit there and watch that sort of stuff, man. Call me sensitive, call me whatever you want to call me. That don't make me to be what you call me. But, hey, that's just how I feel. I don't watch those type of movies. I'm too busy trying to inform people about the slavery that's going on right now. And that's my other thing. That's the other thing. I feel like these movies are serving the purpose of continuing to brainwash black folks, brainwash white folks, brainwash Hispanic folks, brainwash everybody, and make them think that the United States done away with the evil of slavery in 1865, when nothing could be further from the truth, when we have a big glaring exception clause in the 13th Amendment. And one of the things Snoop said, and I will play his comments, but one of the things that he said, some of this stuff is still going on today. how they was abusing us back then. What about that? Let's talk about that. So again, why people want to jump all on Snoop Dogg and act like just cause he a serial, pothead and what have you. He smoke a lot of weed and all that. Like the man ain't got no thoughts worth sharing and what have you. That's just wrong. That's just wrong. And especially wrong to say the man is dumb and stupid. And again, we will listen to his comments in their entirety. I did bleep out some of the cuss words and what have you. Okay, y'all know how Snoop is and whatnot. Every other word seemed to be a cuss word and whatnot, so we bleep them out. So in case there's any kids in the room or something like that, you don't have to worry about that. So I think it's a conversation worth having. Other people asked me, before I came on air, somebody asked me, they said, did you happen to catch Roland Martin today? And I said, no. And he said that they were talking about that. And I was like, really? And said that it was a really interesting conversation. And so, again, there is a lot to be discussed, a lot for us to go into and to consider, thanks to Snoop Dogg bringing this up, it going viral and whatnot. But I just think that we should not just write his comments off as the silly comments or the dumb comments or the stupid comments of a pothead, of a rapper and what have you. Now, other people have rightly pointed out, though, if Snoop Dogg want to talk about white folks and how the media that they are putting on television is harming us, people have rightly pointed out that Snoop Dogg has been engaged in making music, a form of media that also has promoted negativity, and had less than desirable impact on the minds of black folks and what have you. So, Snoop ain't thinking about that. But, instead of just calling him dumb, reach out to the brother, comment on the video and say, well, what about this, Snoop? I mean, I feel where you're coming from, but what about the music industry and how they are hiding the fact, that a lot of those ills are still going on and whatnot, and also getting us to programming young people to engage in non-constructive behavior. So, I mean, that's all legitimate. That's all legitimate to bring up, to get him to look at, to get other people to consider. But again, I think it's wrong to just write him off as some idiotic dopehead or dope boy or something like that. That's just wrong. That's just wrong. All right. Come down off of your high horse. You can learn something from anyone. I found that, although I've heard that saying plenty of times, but I found that to be true. That if you pay attention to what people say, to what people are doing, if you're very observant, you can pick up stuff from just about anyone. You can learn something new every day, and you can learn stuff from children. I've heard children talk like they have more sense, have more wherewithal, are more conscious than some adults I know. So, again, I think that everybody's opinion should be considered, should be taken into consideration and judged based off the merits and what have you. Again, we're not going to agree with each other on everything, and nor should we be looking to. But what we should be looking to have is constructive conversations, and I don't think there's anything constructive about calling somebody dumb, especially when what he says makes perfect sense to me. All right, so if you want to comment on that, if you want to ask our guests who will be dialing in here in just a bit, you can give us a call. The studio line is 704-951-5030. That again is 704-951-5030 is the studio line. The conference line is 641-715-3660. The participant code is 549-032#. Of course, those dialed in, once you dialed in, hit *6 and 1 to comment on air. All right. There are, of course, a whole lot of other things to take a look at that's in the news today. Been sharing some stuff on our various social media platforms. Again, we will be joined here in just a bit by LeRon Barton. We're going to talk about his article that was published on goodmenproject.com about when black people and the police collide. He talks about what to do in order to walk away alive, and that is a message that is worth repeating. We do need to know, especially our young people, need to know battlefield survival skills. They most certainly need to learn that. So I do believe we have Mr. Barton on the line. LeRon, is that you, brother?
Yes, sir. This is Scotty Reed.
Hey, thank you for joining us today.
No problem, man. Thank you very much for the invitation, man. It's like third time's a charm. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, and we'll hope you'll keep coming back, man, because I'm a big fan.
Absolutely.
I'm a big fan of your writing. I think that you produce very constructive work and make constructive suggestions and what have you. So it's always a pleasure to have you on the network. Before we jump into your article, let me ask you this, LeRon. I don't know, but it's possible you may have seen the conversation that has gone national about Snoop Dogg's comments about this remake of the film Roots. He says he's tired of seeing black bodies abused on television. Have you heard about that, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yes, I have. I actually saw it this morning. And, well, first off, I'm a humongous fan of Snoop Dogg. I think he's a very intelligent dude. I mean, he's one of my favorite MCs of all time. With that being said, I 100% agree, man. I mean, it's something to be said where the only time that we see black history is that black people are in bondage, they're in chains, they're being brutalized by white people. And when we get our freedom, it's because of white people. So we're never seen as being aggressive. We're never seen as playing a part in our, in our freedom. So, I mean, I 100% agree with them. You know, I'm sick of the slave films, Scotty. I'm sick of the white savior film. And the only slavery film that I'm gonna see is A Birth of a Nation, because that shows Nat Turner as a warrior.
Right.
That shows, him fighting against racism, white supremacy. It doesn't show him, begging for a white man to let us free. I mean, as much as I thought 12 Years a Slave was the best film I've seen this decade, at the end of the day, the Brad Pitt character was chiefly responsible for Solomon Northup, I believe that's the fellow's name, gaining freedom. So I mean, it's I'm rocking with Snoop Dogg, and I've seen a couple people online not really agreeing with him, and I question why. I mean, what do you think about his comments? I'm just curious.
What I think, well, I had actually expressed those sentiments 2 weeks ago on New Abolitionist Radio when Max and Johannan was recommending that I watch the television series Underground. And I pretty much stated the same thing that Snoop Dogg stated. This is two weeks ago. It's in the podcast. I said, I just have a hard time sitting for any length of time and watching black people be abused like that. I just can't take it. And so I don't watch them. And they were trying to explain to me that Underground is a little bit different. And I told them I will try to watch it, but I just haven't brought myself to watch it yet. LeRon, for the reasons that I've stated, man, if you ask me if you've seen one slave movie, you've seen them all. For the very same reasons that you said, the white savior, we didn't really have anything to do with our own liberation. The only movie I saw that accurately portrayed us participating in our own liberation was the movie Glory with Denzel and Morgan Freeman and whatnot. Those are the type I like. But the other ones like Roots, I was very traumatized by Roots as a child. Right. And I feel Snoop where he's coming from.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's almost like those movies are not released. They're just not released on a humbug. There's a reason, man. I mean, like with the unrest of various acts of police terrorism going on. I mean, it's almost like the powers that be are just seeking to keep blacks at a docile and often confused state of mind. I mean, it's like, oh, well, we're supposed to be fighting against racism and white supremacy, but white people freed us. I'm like, that's not 100% true. So yeah, dude, I agree with you, man. I mean, and shout out to Snoop Dogg for, just showing black self-respect.
Right. All right, so and I thought that would be, this kind of correlates with the topic, because one of my other issues, I contacted you a few days ago, last week sometime, about coming on today to discuss this article. In the way that I describe police, I describe them as modern day slave catchers. And,
absolutely.
And that's one of the things that Snoop said in that clip was, what about the abuse that's going on today? What about that? They still abusing us, even though he doesn't, I don't know if he knows the 13th Amendment never abolished slavery, and that's what people call mass incarceration, is a continuation of slavery. But he is right that we're still suffering all of this today. You could take what you wrote when black people and the police collide, and it would apply to black people in the 1800s and the 1700s and the 1600s when the first police department was created.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I like that Snoop said that. I mean, the only criticism that I have for Snoop Dogg is that he is a Hillary Clinton supporter.
Right.
So he may not know and or understand the Clintons' involvement in mass incarceration, or as you aptly put, 21st century slavery. So, but yeah, I'm glad to see notable black people, speaking out, because I mean, again, man, there's no reason why Roots should have been remade. I mean, it's for what? I mean, it's interesting, Scotty, because the young man that made A Birth of a Nation, his name escapes me now, but he had to self-fund that movie himself. Like, right. Hollywood is not going to fund a film that's showing black people killing white people. It's just not going to do it. So I mean, I applaud Snoop for saying that, and I just hope more people really sort of take that stance and just start just rejecting. Because our history is more than just slavery. I mean, it starts way before that. Right.
Now, let's get into your article. What caused you to write this article? It appears from reading this article that is featured on goodmenproject.com, when black people and the police collide. It seems like, you were talking to somebody, that you was having a conversation with someone perhaps you're mentoring and whatnot.
Yes, sir.
And so can you tell us what led you to have this talk with this person?
Well, this was, we had this, it's funny being around him. He's almost 15 years old. So he's a 15-year-old young black male being raised in San Francisco. And so I always felt that, we have to talk to our young people, especially young black men, about the police and about what they're really like. I mean, this isn't officer friendly. This is a group of, be honest with you, it's a group of terrorists that are going around terrorizing black, brown, and other folks of color. So we had a conversation about Mike Brown and about Eric Garner. Scotty, when I talk to him, I'm brutally honest about what he's going to face, because my mother, she didn't sell me dreams. You know what I mean? And I feel that I would be doing him a disservice if I did not tell him what's really going on. So I just started asking, like, what have been your interactions with the police department? And he started telling me things, and it just really depressed me. And I said, okay, I need to let this guy know what's really going on, and I need to give him the tools that he needs to survive.
I'm sorry, when you say what he said to you depressed you, was it because of the mistreatment he described, or because you felt he was very misinformed?
Well, actually, he wasn't misinformed. I mean, he isn't codified yet, but I mean, like, we're getting him there. It just depressed me, Scotty, because the same things that he he's going through are the same things that I have faced and still face today. So
Right.
it's almost like it's never ending cycle.
Right.
And so I think my job as an older black person, or just as an older person, period, is to better equip the youth to be able to handle situations. And so that's what really inspired the piece.
Yeah. San Francisco, now you said M is growing up in San Francisco. If I'm not mistaken, San Francisco police has been in the news a lot lately, haven't they? I think one of the chief just resigned over something.
Absolutely. I want to say shout out to the Frisco Five. They were the five group of non-white people that were staging a hunger strike to get the then chief police Greg Sir to be ousted. So I believe like within the past 2 to 3 years, there's been so many examples of racial incidents at the San Francisco Police Department, whether it be the text messages that have been surfaced, many white officers referring to Latinos as beaners, blacks as niggers, just various racial epithets from towards Asians and Indians, and then of course there was the shooting of the brother Mario Woods last December, which he was shot, I believe, over 20 times. He had they say he had a knife, but he also suffered from mental health issues. There was a shooting recently, I believe about 2 weeks ago, of the young sister, Jessica Williams. She was pregnant, driving a car, and the police, without any kind of due process, with any kind of reading their rights, shot her dead in the car. So that's just a small example. I mean, there was young Latino brother about a couple of years ago. His name was Alex Nieto. He was shot over 50 times in the Borough Heights area. People said he had a weapon, but in actuality, that was just an example of the racial hostilities as well as gentrification that's happening within the city. So there's been plenty of just incidents of just the police behaving in a very unsavory and honestly dangerous manner.
Mm. Right. So, I try to keep up with these issues as much as possible, and I know that San Francisco had been in the news a lot lately. So,
absolutely,
yeah. So let's go over some of these points. Now, your list isn't too long, and I'm kind of glad of that. I'm a fan of keep it simple as possible.
Right.
And not giving us too much at one time to try to remember, especially if we're talking to young people. But there are some of the things in here. All right, number one, you say you will be looked at as a criminal. All right.
Absolutely.
The is that?
Well, I mean, because of just my experiences, who I am, and also if you look at the number and the types of people that have been arrested, either, I guess, lack of a better term, justly or unjustly, or just stopped. I mean, they're disproportionately black and Latino males.
Right.
So that leads me to believe that the police will always look at us as sort of a suspect or as a hostile individual. So I wanted to put that out there just off the rip. Say, listen, you're going to be targeted because of this. So let's just get used to it.
Right. You're guilty until proven innocent when you're dealing with cops.
Absolutely.
Right. I thought this was very important, but it seemed simple enough. It seemed like common sense. But it does need to be stressed. One of the things that I was told, and I've seen other people who made, how to interact with police lists and stuff like that, is always keeping your hands visible. If you're in the car, keep your hands on the steering wheel. Never make any kind of sudden movements. If you are outside of the car, just keep your hands to your side is what you wrote. Don't act nervous, anything like that, and why is that important? I mean, it seems like it's self-explanatory, but break it down for some people.
Well, if you look at many of the police shootings, many of the suspects were unarmed, and The reasoning behind the police terrorism is that the cops will say, "Oh, well, I fear for my life." Mm-hmm. So if you sort of, I mean, not saying like that this is going to save you at all, but if you keep your hands visible, hey, listen, I have nothing in my hands. This bag of Skittles is not a knife, or in Alex's case, this burrito isn't a stun gun. And if you try to remain as calm as possible, then the police can't use that excuse.
Right. Furtive movements is the terminology police use. They say he made furtive movements. That means sudden movements, or he went for his gun. Furtive movements that we think may lead to you trying to harm us. That's the terminology they use. Furtive movements. Right. I'm not going to go over the whole list. I did link to it. Listeners, those who listen later on the podcast, please go check it out. Here is, you talk about being cool and keeping eye contact and whatnot. And this I did not see in your list, but I just want to add to it is that whenever I'm talking to the police, it's yes, sir, no, sir,
right,
yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And that's not because I'm a punk or right, I'm submissive or anything like that. Well, it became a habit when I came out of the military. Okay.
Right.
It should have been a habit before I went into the military, but that really got instilled in me in the military because you have to always address officers as yes, sir, no, ma'am, stuff like that. So that just stayed with me when I came out of the military. And I found that when I talk to officers like that, yes, sir, no, ma'am, may I ask this question, sir, like that it puts right, those cops at ease. It sort of disarms them.
Right. One thing that I do want to make a point of, and when people read this list, they may look at it as sort of victim blaming or even sort of respectability politics. No, look, I'm under no illusion that no matter how I act, walk, talk, or whatever, I'm still black and I'm still going to be a target of the system. It's just that at the end of the day, young black people have to realize that our relationship with the police is radically different from, say, their white counterparts or right, say even their Asian counterparts. So, no one's trying to say, oh, let's tap dance for white folks or let's be the respectable Negro. No, I'm just putting these suggestions that say, hey man, when we deal with the police, it's a different ball game.
Right. What you're doing, in my opinion, is trying to save lives. It's that simple.
Absolutely.
It's that simple. I'm one of the most nonconformist people you will ever meet. You can talk to people that's known me since grade school, and they'll tell you Scotty is not one who conforms. He likes to, make waves and whatnot. He's different. But I tell you, I know the power that those people hold. I know they got a license to kill, and I'm not ready to leave this planet yet. I'm not ready to be, right, 6 feet under. And so, I know I am not so prideful that I can't say yes, sir, no, sir, keep my hands where, just trying to survive the
right,
encounter.
Absolutely.
Right. Because again, I see it as a battlefield, and I've been in what they might call an actual war zone during the Gulf War. And we we were told to act in a codified manner, things we couldn't do, things we shouldn't do, how to act when you're in this Muslim nation and whatnot, to be codified so you don't get snatched up by the religious police and whatnot. So it's not about being subservient. It's about being realistic about the situation that we're in. And it is about trying to survive those encounters so that, we can still contribute to the long war that we're in.
Right. I 100% totally agree. It's all about being as codified as you can and just realizing, what you're up against.
Yeah. Here are the last 2 points I want to bring up LeRon, that you bring up that I think are very important. I used to date this attorney years ago, and she had called me one night, and she was saying that, this cop was pulling her over. It was a rural area, and she was like, stay on the phone with me. I'm not going to stop until I get to a public place that's well lit, right, and I see some people. And that's one of the things you put in that piece. Why is that important, to have witnesses?
Well, Scotty, that was something that my mother taught me a long time ago. It was like, if you get pulled over, try to pull over. I'm sorry. If you get flagged to stop, try to pull over at a well lit area, or even around people, because what that does is that reduces the chance of the cop doing something false, doing something shady. If you pull over where there's people around, they can see, if there was any improprieties that was happening, they can potentially be witnesses. Because like many times, like if you don't have a video camera, if you don't have a video phone, and these cops stop you and they could do something malicious, well, it's going to be your word against theirs. Mm-hmm. And almost always the Justice Department is always going to side with the police. So if you have witnesses, or if you can even just see what's going on, then you'll have a better chance of beating the case if something goes afoul. So it's just survival techniques,
Right. And the last one, I think, is one of the most important ones. No warrant, no search. This actually, I exercised this rule. I was a soldier. And this goes to your point about you will be looked at as a criminal. Okay. I was in the military. I was stationed at Fort Huachuca, Arizona. I lived off base, so I had to travel back and forth on base. I lived in a little town called Sierra Vista. I had like a Celica GT at the time. It had pop-up headlights, nice. and one of the headlights will have a tendency to get stuck. And if I hit it, it'll come up. Well, it had gotten stuck on me. It wasn't dark, but I had my fog lights on. And so this cop pulls me over for the headlight. I asked him, I was like, officer, I asked, why you pulling me over? He was like, your headlight. I was like, officer, if you allow me to get out my car, I can fix that right now. And it gets stuck sometimes. He was like, go ahead. So I get out the car, I hit it. It pops up. I was like, can I go, officer? And then he says, no. He was like, I want to know if I could search your car. And I was like, wait a minute, man. I was like, why? He was like, you look like you might be a drug dealer. And I was saying to myself, at that time, I wasn't even conscious enough to know that I was being insulted. I knew it wasn't right, but I was like, well, you see the stickers, the base stickers on my car. You see my haircut. You know that I'm in the United States military. I don't care. You can still be a drug dealer. So even knowing that I was in the military, I was still viewed as a criminal by this cop. So he says, and this is before anybody had ever said anything to me about this rule. But he said, can I search your car? So I thought about it. And I said, can he search my car? That sounds like a question. Well, I'm going to see what he going to do if I say no. And I said, no, you can't search my car. And he says, have a good day, and leaves.
Wow.
That's very important. I try to tell my daughters this every day. Whenever I see something in their car that shouldn't be in the floorboards, trash, anything like that, I was like, you don't want to give them probable cause. You don't want them seeing any kind of wrappers. I don't care if you don't smoke. You don't want them seeing none of this type of stuff, because then they'll try to use that as probable cause to do a no warrant search. But I think it's very important that you say that if they don't have a warrant, don't let them search your car. Make them get a warrant. I mean, that might be the most important thing on your list, in my opinion, to keep people out of slavery.
Right. Scotty, I heard from too many friends, folks around the way, folks that I've read about, saying that, hey, man, the cops planted X, Y, and Z. Look, we have to understand that and this is something that you had said a couple months ago and just clicked. It's like the cops are not our friends. I mean, I don't understand why black people have not gotten this yet. I mean, if you throughout the years, how many times there's been these quote unquote stops where police find something. I mean, it happens too much for it to be a coincidence. It happens too much to be, oh well, that's an outlier. That's an outside incident. No. When a cop has a quota, which is one of the most dangerous people in the world, he or she's trying to fill that quota. So they will do anything that they can to do so, and one of the ways is to plant evidence on you.
Right.
For me, it's common sense.
Right.
When I was younger, I let a cop search my car because I felt like, hey, I have nothing to hide. This is when I wasn't conscious. This is when I just didn't understand the game. And I let a cop search my car, and he didn't find anything, but the cop didn't have a warrant. And so I realized later that if they don't have a warrant, they have no right to come into your property. They have no right to search your property. So I just want people to realize that again, I mean, there's been so many instances of police unlawfully planting evidence, quote unquote, finding this surprise gun or this surprise sack of rocks or some marijuana, whatever. So I just say that to say that we should really understand the law and realize that without a warrant, they cannot invade our spaces.
Right. Now, they still will, though. They still will. It has actually happened to a relative of mine, and they planted a little sack of weed in his car after he told them no. But because he told them no and they didn't have a warrant, the attorney was able to get it thrown out.
Nice.
So they are still
nice.
But as long as you do what you're supposed to do, and like you said earlier, LeRon, we're not sitting up here saying any of these things are going to save you from being killed, from being beaten, from being raped, from being put into slavery. We're just saying that these are things that you can do to minimize the likelihood that that'll happen to you.
Man, it's just like what the great Neely Fuller says, Scotty. Minimize contact, minimize conflict. So
right.
That's it.
Well, I kept you longer than I should have. I want to thank you for being gracious with your time. What you got coming up, man? You got anything planned, and how can people follow your work?
Yes, sir. So, Scotty, something that I've been working on is a really big piece. It's going to possibly be 3,000 to 4,000 words. It's talking about recidivism, dealing with women, how the mass incarceration system sort of just pushes these women out with any type of resources, and they can't help but to come back in and reoffend and come back into the mass incarceration system. So I'm really working on that. I was really inspired by Ta-Nehisi Coates' The Case for Reparations, and I wanted to write something grand because when we talk about 21st century slavery, we always talk about men, and we don't talk about women. And so, shout out to my friend Manani. Like, one of the things she said is that women have a different path to criminality. So I should be done with that piece, and say within August. And I would love to come on your show and talk about it. I think it's really going to be a game changer.
Right.
And I'm also working on a piece about why we should talk to kids about racism. I think that a lot of our young, they're being traumatized with these quote unquote snuff films. When you see Eric Garner getting strangled, or when you see I believe the woman's name is Marlene Penny, when you see her getting beat down by police, or when you see the young lady last year that was drugged by the school officer, it's like we're not understanding that those actions are really affecting young people's psyche.
Right.
So, I'm definitely, I'm always going to write about race, but I definitely want to want to write about those sort of things. So I'll let you know when those come out. And you can just reach me. I'm at www.mainlinepub.com. I'm on Twitter at Mainline LeRon, and I'm also on Facebook under LeRon Barton. So I'm always looking for people to reach out.
Well, we're certainly looking forward to your next piece, and a lot of people don't know, LeRon, that women are the fastest growing percentage of those who are being enslaved through the criminal justice system. A lot of people don't know that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they are. They are the fastest growing, even more than black men. Black women are increasingly going into the system faster than anybody else, and that's like really, really bad. When we consider the black woman being the center of our universe and whatnot, our mothers, our daughters,
Absolutely.
who gave us life, man. And so definitely looking forward to that. So thank you again for all that you do, LeRon. I look forward to reading those pieces and having you back on the program. You stay safe behind these enemy lines.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Scotty, for the invitation. I'm a huge fan of your show. You pretty much changed the way that I talk about police brutality as well as mass incarceration. I no longer use the term police brutality. I use the term police terrorism. I no longer use mass incarceration. I use 21st century slavery. So I just want to say thank you to that, and look forward to talking with you soon.
All right, sir. Be safe.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because words are important. It is important that we use the most correct terminology as possible, and it is a fact that what we are facing is state-sanctioned terrorism by cops. What we are facing is not mass incarceration, but it's a continuation of slavery. And I'm starting to see more and more of that language used in the mainstream, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing, for people to accurately take a look at those things. So, listen, I'm going to go ahead and take a station identification break, and then I'll come back. I said I was going to play the comments of Snoop Dogg. I'll play those comments, and I'll give my final thought on the matter. I think the brother makes a lot of good sense, things to consider. I may not agree with the way he says it, and everything that he says, I may not agree with. But the gist of his comment is that I'm tired of being traumatized from watching all these black bodies getting mutilated, beaten, abused, and what have you on television. So yeah, if you have any thoughts or comments on that, anything we talked about with Mr. Barton, give us a call, 704-951-5030. That's the studio line. The conference line is 641-715-3660. The participant code is 549032#. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The Black Talk Radio Network is made possible in part with help from the Black Talk Media Project, a North Carolina-based nonprofit engaged in the production and distribution of independent digital black media. Find out more by going to blacktalkradionetwork.com or blacktalkmediaproject.org and look for the menu tab, Crowdfunding Black Media. Black Talk Media Project, helping to provide you with new black media for the new millennium.
You are tuned in to Black Talk Radio, new black media for the new millennium. And welcome back to Black Talk Radio News. Again, my name is Scotty Reed, broadcasting from behind the enemy lines of USA Inc. Let's go ahead and give a listen. It's just, the video that Snoop made, it's only 1 minute long. All right. And so let's just go ahead and give it a listen. Again, you're going to hear a lot of bleeping because there was a lot of cuss words being used. And I tried to keep this platform family friendly, even though we don't have to. Digital internet radio is not regulated by the FCC, but we do try to keep, our broadcast as clean as possible. All right. Let's go ahead and play that.
Not losing No disrespect, but I can't watch no more black movies where niggas getting dogged out, 12 years a slave, Roots, Underground. I can't watch none of that. I'm sick of this. How the they gonna put Roots on Memorial Day? They gonna just keep beating that in our heads of how they did us, huh? I mean, I don't understand America. They just want to just keep showing the abuse that we took hundreds and hundreds of years ago. But guess what? We taking the same abuse. Think about that part. When y'all gonna make a series about the success that black folks is having? The only success we have is Roots and 12 Years a Slave and shit like that, huh? Y'all, I ain't watching that. I advise you, because that's real niggas like myself, them television shows. Let's create our own based on the day. How we live and how we inspire people today. Black is what's real. That old right, Jules?
All right, so that was Snoop Dogg's comment. There's a couple of issues that we can talk about there, but again, I've already expressed, I feel where he's coming from. I just stopped watching those movies, man. I don't even watch, well, first of all, I don't watch that much television, period. I will watch corporate media news every once in a while, few minutes a day, whatever, or somebody call me to the TV and say, Scotty, did you see this or what have you? On Sundays during football season, I do watch my Carolina Panthers. That's a family affair. We all sit down, have a good time watching the Panthers. That's about my extent of television watching, okay? That's about my extent. Now, when I'm ready to go to sleep and whatnot, trying to wind down, I will play some movies or what have you on my computer in my room and fall asleep watching those and whatnot. But I'm pretty much, I'm a sci-fi guy. I like science fiction. I used to like war movies. I don't even like war movies anymore. You know, I did like Glory. I will watch that again over, a couple of times. I watched that about eight times. I actually saw Glory in the movies. For those that don't know the movie Glory, that starred Morgan Freeman. A number of black people were in that film. His name escapes me. Man, Denzel Washington was in that. I actually she wasn't my wife at the time, but she was my girlfriend at the time, mother of my two of my oldest children. We saw that at the theater when it came out, Glory. I came out of there with tears in my eyes. For real, this brother was crying. He was crying because those black men had broken through the lines and they got into the fort and they opened up the cannons on them and took them out and whatnot. I was just so sad. I was crushed, man, for real. I have never cried at a movie, but I had tears in my eyes on that scene. I ain't going to lie to you. But that's about it. I don't really watch a whole lot of TV. And that's one of the things that Snoop Dogg says there. That wasn't his main point, but he came to the conclusion, F these TV shows. Now, how long have, quote unquote, the conscious community been telling black folks to turn off the idiot box, to stop watching all that television? Turn it off. Stop. It is not enriching your life whatsoever. It is actually harming your life to watch all these white supremacist lies and half-truths and propaganda and what have you. We're not even in control of our own stories. People want to talk about, again, what would Jews do? I'm going to come out with, that's a saying now we ought to have. What would Jews do? Because people always say that to black people when we start talking about these sort of issues. Well, what would Jews do? Well, guess what? Jews would make their own story. Jews will write their own stories. They will produce their own stories. They will direct their own stories, and they will distribute their own stories. That's the difference between us and them in telling our story. They're in control of their stories. We are not. All right? And so, Snoop Dogg is right to say F all them shows. Watching too much scandal is what got so many black women voting for Hillary Clinton. Now, again, like Mr. Barton brought up, Snoop Dogg is backing Hillary Clinton, and perhaps he don't know her role in 21st slavery and human trafficking. and what have you. But again, I think that is a constructive suggestion that he's making when he say F them shows. He's saying turn the TV off. How is he dumb for saying something that many so-called scholars, intellectuals, and what have you have been telling us for decades to turn the TV off? Reading is better than watching TV. We've heard that. Okay, so how come all of a sudden it's dumb and stupid when Snoop Dogg say it? It's not dumb and stupid. It is a very valid point that he's making. Why do they want to keep showing us the same type of slave movies? All right, it's the same type. The plot is always the same. Mr. Barton laid it out. You know, black person being brutalized. White person comes along and saves them and what have you. Again, Glory is the only movie I have seen that shows that black people participated in their own liberation. And the history is, and I think I talked about this on yesterday's program, the history is the Civil War wouldn't have been won without black people, without enslaved African and free African alike, without our manpower, woman power, our fighting ability and whatnot. The Confederacy would still exist to this day. We'll be living on a continent with two countries on it, the USA and the CSA, if not for black folks. Again, it would have never been a USA if not for black folks. In the American Revolution, where those movies at? Where those movies at showing George Washington, the racist, white supremacist enslaver who's noted at this as this military genius and what have you, but the genius almost lost the Revolutionary War because he wanted to practice racism and ban free black colonists. Yes, there were free black colonists. And enslaved African who fought in the American Revolution. You know, he didn't want to let them be in there and serve in there until they were losing. Then when they were losing, when they were outnumbered, outgunned, and what have you, then here come the black men to save his ass. See, they ain't been saving our ass. We've been saving their ass. This is truth, people. Y'all can look this up. This is the stuff they don't teach you in your school books, and they definitely ain't making movies about. And they not making television series about. I started watching this one television series because I always have been a history buff. Don't ask me why. I'm just weird like that. And ever since I was a preteen, I just love reading history books and what have you. So, you know, that I admit, you know, not a lot of teens get into stuff like that. But since I am a student of that history, I know this history. I know this history. I looked it up. And it's not that, you know, they have been saving us, but we've been saving them. Again, without the black revolutionary soldier, America wouldn't exist as USA Inc. is today. Without the black liberators, freedom fighters who joined to end slavery in this country, if not for those black freedom fighters, the Confederacy, the Confederate States of America would exist today. It would not be one nation. It wouldn't. These are undeniable truths, but they not making movies about that. I wonder why. Why is it we always get the traumatizing films? Is it because they want to keep us depressed? Is it because they want us traumatized? And they also got me to thinking, you know, Dr. Joyce DeGruy, I'm probably butchering her name, not to minimize the work she's done. I really haven't looked into this thing about post-traumatic slave disorder. People saying, you know, that enslaved Africans have passed on these memories genetically. I have read that, you know, that has been reported among Holocaust survivors passing on those memories. I haven't looked at the study to determine whether or not, you know, I believe it or not. I need to see the supporting evidence for that. But I will say this, though. Could some of that be traumatic stress from watching these damn slave movies. Because all the time you're getting abused. Even the butler, that wasn't even about slavery. I watched a couple of scenes of it. That's all I could stomach. But, I mean, come on. The butler, the help, 12 years a slave, now Roots again. How come we always get in these movies where it's nothing but mistreatment? That's all it is, mostly mistreatment. And how strong black people is and dignified in their suffering and whatnot. Get the hell out of here with that. See, that's how they want us. Passive, subservient, nonviolent. When, no freedom has ever been obtained by nonviolent means alone. It just hasn't happened. So-called colonists didn't get their freedom by marching and praying and trying to appeal to the humanity of King George and all of that. No, hell no. They picked up the gun. They fought for their freedom. I'm just, for the life of me, trying to figure out why those black soldiers and other people who didn't believe in slavery, after they got through dispatching the British, why they didn't turn them guns on them slavers like Jefferson and Washington. That's the story I want to tell. I want told. So they ain't going to tell you them stories. There's a reason for that. So I feel my brother. I feel Snoop Dogg on that. Let's go to the phone and see if we can get the thoughts of one of our listeners. I'm not sure what your name is, but you should have heard your line open up. Go ahead with your question or comment. I think it's Kia. Somebody named Kia. Your line is open. Okay. Your mic is open if you want to chime in at any time. I don't know if you've muted yourself or whatnot, but your mic is open. So, I mean, I'm feeling what Snoop Dogg is saying. He's calling for boycotts of Roots. I say boycott television. You know what I'm saying? Boycott all them movies. Like he said, all them TV shows. If they are not teaching you anything or whatnot, then, boycott them. Boycott them. Now, I'm going to be realistic. Sometimes we do need to wind down. My daughters, they like watching cooking shows, and I like eating the cooking that they do, that they learn from these shows and stuff. I'm going to be realistic. But let's not act like Snoop Dogg is dumb for saying what he said, when many other people have been saying the same thing for years, about boycotting TV. And there are so many stories that have yet to be told. Why we got to keep telling the same one over and over and over and over. Why we got to traumatize a new generation of children. And some of you was traumatized by that film. All right? So, I feel where he's coming from. And I don't think that his views should just be dismissed simply because we don't agree with everything he's done in his life. I mean, the truth is the truth. The truth it will stand on its own no matter who tell it. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. And a lot of people agree with what Snoop Dogg is expressing here. And I think that we should be trying to engage him in other conversations. Maybe Snoop Dogg needs to learn about culturalgrassroots.com and the work of Mr. Marlon Adams, a filmmaker, and how they are working on crowdfunding black films and what have you. Maybe, he need to hear about Charlotte Capers of Revolution Media up there in New York. They got the Hip Hop Film Festival coming up in August, which Black Talk Radio, Black Talk Media Project is a proud sponsor of. That sister has long been engaged in independent filmmaking and what have you. So, Snoop, let's start making these movies. And he makes a good point, too, about let's make some movies about some good stuff that we're doing today, some inspiring stuff. How is that dumb? How is that stupid? again, I have bouts of depression because of the nature of this radio show and dealing with political and social issues, and just being exposed to all of this evil and corruptness, just by reading it or watching it and seeing the videos and hearing the audio, that wears on me over time. It does. All right. And so he's right, man. We do need some media that's going to inspire us sometime. Learn about something good somebody's doing. I understand Cam Newton, who is the NFL quarterback for the Carolina Panthers here in North Carolina, he has a show coming out called All In with Cam that's going to be on Nickelodeon, where he's going around, helping all these children and helping them, see what they need to do to achieve their dreams. He just got through taping an episode with First Lady Michelle Obama and whatnot. And so, we need that type of stuff. We need the stuff that uplifts us, that inspires us, that makes us feel good about ourselves just as much as we need the other stuff that informs us about what's going on around us, what's being done to us, and how do we resolve these issues? How do we solve these issues? All right, we got to have balance, man. We got to have balance, and I've been trying to do more of that, adding more balance in my life. I still not watching a lot of television, but I'm starting to get back to listening to more music, the type of music that makes you feel good, like that old 60s and 70s Motown, that Philly sound and what have you, listening to those good vibrations and those vibrations moving through the air. I mean, all this stuff does have an impact on us metaphysically as well, psychologically, spiritually, and what have you. So I'm trying to introduce, some of that feel good stuff, music, as therapy for me. So he to me, the brother made very, very good points, even if you don't like the way that he expressed it, even if he, didn't articulate it the way that Obama would or what have you, So I just think people need to lighten up on Snoop Dogg and see what he's saying, and look at the issue more deeply than just writing him off because he's a rapper, or writing him off because he smoked weed, or writing him off for he used to make gangster rap, or he still make gangster rap. Yeah, the brother do have a lot of issues that need to be resolved and what have you, but look, I'm not going to act like I ain't got my own issues to resolve. So let me see. Let's get this caller, area code 9901. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was a person on the other line, but it didn't work, so I just called back. I just called on the phone.
Oh, glad you called back. Go ahead and share your thoughts with us.
I agree with what he said. Of course, I'm not, like you said, not necessarily the way he said it, but I do agree with what he said. But I guess my point with him is, you have the resources to make a film. You don't, we should make a film. You make a film. You got the money. You were in Baby Boy, and you were in Training Day. So it's not like you've never been in a movie. You live in California, where they make more films than people can count. So while I agree with what you said, he should start, if you don't know how to write a script, he could start asking for some scripts, and maybe he will. Maybe he just, because that video, like you said, was only a minute. Maybe he said, let me go look for some scripts. We have lots of universities. You could have a contest where they make the film.
Mm-hmm.
You could do a lot of things around this. So while I agree with what he said, he needs to take the next step. So we need to do this all in our life, because we always say, we need to do this, we need to do this. You don't want to watch Roots, that's fine. We all should read the book at a minimum, because reading is more important. If you want to know about slavery, black people have written slave narratives. We can read those, and, we can come up with our own images. We don't need, sometimes, like you said, those images are too graphic. So there are other things, that he could do. He knows all the other rappers with a lot of money.
Right. He needs to network. He needs to network. And maybe he will, sis. Maybe he came to a moment of clarity, you know.
Yeah, like I said, maybe he will, but I mean, and I could just say from a very small example, personally, you know, when I was little, my grandmother one time, she was like, "Oh, you need to get your hair done." She didn't go, "Oh, you need to get." She didn't just say that. She gave me the money to do it. You know, he has the resources to enable people to do it if he can't do it himself. He helps his kids with the sports thing. Maybe he can have a sports himself. You know, while it's during the sports time, you do the sports. Then out of sports season, make a film. I mean, maybe he doesn't know people who think like this, or I don't know. Like I said, maybe he just had a moment and he went back to whatever.
Right. But let me ask you this.
I don't know.
Let me ask you this, because you touched upon it, and it's also been brought up, and it is a valid point that we should consider, and that's people on the other side that's saying, well, we need the slave movies. Well, I don't agree that we need them and what have you, but, you know, we should never forget, and we should never let them forget. But my thing is, you mentioned that they're so brutal. They're so brutal and traumatizing. And people was talking about all the Jewish movies that come out about the Holocaust and what have you. Now, I've seen a few Holocaust movies, and I just don't see the level of brutality being displayed on the screen against people playing those characters as what I see black people going through on as characters on these films. Do you? I don't know if you've ever watched any Holocaust movies, but have you noticed?
Well, the only movies I've ever really seen is like Schindler's List and like the Ten Commandments. And from what I remember with Schindler's List, it was sad, but I don't remember any. I don't remember it. Like I said, I don't watch a whole lot of movies like that. But like you said, I don't remember. I don't know. Even, of course, the Ten Commandments was a long time ago when they didn't show. Well, they showed some, but not that level of brutality. But even when they made it over, I mean, the only thing I can think of is, I guess, that sort of has some brutality, almost like that, was the Passion of the Christ. Maybe because they.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, yeah, they don't have movies where they just beat up other people like that. They just beat up black people like that. You're right. But like you said, if we're not making a film, and that's the thing with rules. I heard like some of us are directors, and you decide to make the whipping scene longer. Really? I don't think this. I got it the first time.
Right.
You know, it was bad.
Right.
That's just.
Well, did you have anything else before we close out? Any final comments?
No, that was it.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And one last point I want to make. Let me clear the queue.
Q&A queue is cleared.
One last point on the propaganda issue. My main number one issue, and it probably wouldn't have been an issue for me 4 years ago, but once I found out that the United States never abolished slavery, when I read the 13th Amendment of the Constitution, it says slavery and involuntary servitude shall be abolished except for punishment for crime. When I learned about the convict leasing program, when I learned about private prisons and what have you, prison stocks being traded on the stock market and all of that, you know, then I stopped looking at slavery in past tense. And I look at it as a present evil that needs to be eliminated. That's why we call ourselves, you know, new abolitionists, paying homage to those abolitionists that came before us, but knowing that there is still a need for abolitionism when obviously slavery was never abolished. According to the 13th Amendment, that's what their own document says. All right, so these movies have the effect of making you think, of convincing you of the greatest lie ever told in modern history, maybe in the history of the world, and that's that slavery was abolished. It's something from the past. It was bad. It was terrible. It was horrible and all those things, but, you know, at least it's in the past. At least we got over it. At least we got past it, and we're no longer that type of country. Nothing could be further from the truth. Everything that happened on a plantation in the 1800s is happening on a prison plantation today. The rape, the murder, the brutality, the whippings, the beatings, and everything. Every horror that you can imagine that your mind might associate with slavery in the 1800s or 1700s, pre-1865. All of that is still going on to this day. It's still going on to this day. Does it look exactly the same? No, it doesn't look exactly the same. You know, the shackles look different. The restraints look different. The uniforms, the clothes that people are wearing look different and what have you. But the practice has not changed. The whole aim of slavery is making a profit by capitalizing on commodities. Black people have always been a commodity for white supremacists to make money off of. That, you know, the first time, and I'm going to keep repeating this, first time when I was reading, I read a lot of historical stuff. I was reading Thomas Jefferson's memoirs. And the first time I ever heard somebody use the word capitalism back during that time was when Thomas Jefferson was saying, had wrote a letter to other slaveholders telling him how proud he was of his formula that he came up with to increase his wealth. And what was that formula? For every black African baby born into slavery on his plantation, his wealth increased about 4%. For not just, you know, a bunch of babies being born, 4% for each baby. 4% he can increase his wealth. All right, that's where first time I read the word capitalism being used in that era back then. That's what America was founded on. Slavery. They call it capitalism, but it's really slavery. All right, so that's one of my other issues is that these movies keep reinforcing the lie into our minds that slavery was abolished, and it just simply wasn't. Looks different, but the aim is the same. The outcomes are the same. All right. Coming up later, Tando Radio Show will be coming on at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Again, that's Tando Radio Show. Do want to inform you about a new program. It's just a podcast right now as they get used to doing the program, and then they will be heard live here on the station. But they did their first podcast, Change Matters Solutions. That podcast is posted. Please go check it out. Please support all independent black media producers. Give you a little bit of information about Change Matters. It is hosted by Kenny Hendricks and Colette Williams. It is a weekly radio program discussing topics that affect all of us, delving into politics, community, education, empowerment, self-reliance, and self-determination. Again, the name of that program is Change Matters Solutions, and you can find it among the menu items of the other programming that you will find right here on blacktalkradionetwork.com. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close it out since we don't have any more people that want to share their thoughts and views. Thank you to the caller who shared hers. Again, thank you, Mr. LeRon Barton, for the work that you are engaging in. Again, check out his article about when police and black people collide. It's basically a survival guide on how to survive this modern day slave catchers of USA Inc. All right. Like he said, there is no foolproof method, no guarantee. You can do all the things that people say you're supposed to do, and guess what? Something bad still can happen. So definitely want to make you aware that there are no foolproof methods. There is only things that you can do to decrease the likelihood that something nasty, something bad, something evil will happen to you. All right. With that said, I'll be back on air Wednesday night on New Abolitionist Radio at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Peace and blessings to all. Be safe.